Okay, so I'm going to try to answer some of the questions for this week, so that'll help you think about what you need to write. So I'm going to flip over there and look at the questions. I think I can move through all six of them, hopefully. There are six already posted by Rachel Russell and James Foglio. So I'm going to start with Rachel Russell down here at the bottom and move my way up. So she asked, Giovanni Mirandola writes in The Dignity of Man about the levels of the soul, sensitive, rational, intellectual. Did this author study with Pietro Papanazzi? Papanazzi used the same wording in his works as the immortality of the soul. Well, that idea of immortality of the soul is kind of around the Renaissance the whole way through. They're looking for that part of man which endures. So thinking about the immortal part of us, the soul, the part that after the body is gone continues on to whatever life that might be, was a very popular notion. Um, did Pietro Papanazzi study with Mirandola? Oh, I don't know that I would say that. They're really contemporaries, meaning they were born around the same time, within a year of each other, in 1462 and 1463, respectively. And Mirandola only lives 30 years, so Papanazzi outlives him by 30 years, and what that means is Papanazzi has the time to look at Mirandola's stuff. And so, but the bigger thing is that Mirandola's kind of that piece that we had is really kind of a seminal text for the Renaissance because it lifts man way up in the architecture of the world instead of leaving him kind of lower where he had been before. So, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I think that's a good answer for now. Is did they study together? No, but they were aware of each other and certainly were responding to each other's works. Um, so good. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna try to do more. I can do more. Here we go. Um, Next one, Leon Battista Alberti writes a very exaggerated autobiography of himself. He talks about people making fun of his work and how rude they were to him. What was this reason? Did he write about controversial topics? Okay, so Alberti, you're right. I mean, he writes a very exaggerated autobiography of himself, and if you can't tell, he is a sensitive soul. He's an artiste, and no one in his family understands him. No one appreciates him in his own time. Of course, this is what every artiste has to believe. If you're an artist, you believe that you have some kind of direct pathway to truth. And Alberti certainly believes that about himself. Making fun of him, yes, his family probably did not appreciate him enough, but he's probably, as you're saying, overstating it. Um, so yes, it seems excessive, right? When he talks about all of his natural abilities and what he can do, um, and he talks very slightingly about the things that he can't do well. I mean, he's a Renaissance man. A Renaissance man can do everything well. Yeah, so controversial topics, not really. More the fact that he's just excessive about himself in that piece, which makes it a great piece. If you haven't read it, make sure you read it, people. The next one, did St. Thomas More work for the king, Henry VIII? Why was he imprisoned in the Tower? Yes, More did work for Henry, and in fact was one of his closest advisors. Um, and so the reason he's imprisoned is because St. Thomas More was a Catholic through and through, and he believed in the primacy or the firstness of the church. You can't break up the church. Henry wanted a divorce from his wife so he could marry a different wife so he could produce an heir, and the Catholic Church was against that. And so Henry decided, well, we're not going to be a part of the Catholic Church anymore. We're going to do our own thing. We're going to be a part of the Reformation. We have the Church of England, and I will be the head of that, and then I can give myself my divorce. Thomas More wouldn't go along with that, and therefore he was imprisoned in the Tower. Now, there's many more complexities to that, but that's kind of the basis of that problem there. More was a strict Catholic and could not allow that, and he was imprisoned and eventually is beheaded there. All right, next one. The Dignity of Man by Giovanni Pico della Mirandola on page 478. Why did God purposely choose not to make humans born heavenly and neither mortal nor immortal? I love that whole quote. When you're reading that thing, that quote is what is the crux of that piece, and you have to pay attention to it. What he says is he's keying off of something from David in one of the Psalms. He says, you know, why, God, would you respect us and look at us and think of us as different and separate? You made us a little better than beasts, but a little lower than angels. So that kind of middle ground. So, and remember, their thinking at this time is that, okay, beasts are just creatures of the earth. They have appetites. They must be fed. They must have drink. They must have babies. So they got to have sex. So these appetites are what moves the beast. The angels, don't have that. The angels are pure intellect, where the beasts are pure body. And we as humans, so the Renaissance people thought, were that middle ground where we had intellect, not as great as the angels, and we had body, not as great as the beast, and we were that middle ground. And the reason God made us that middle ground was so that we could survey his creation and not be stuck in bestial attitudes where we could never look to the stars. This is one of the complaints about the beasts, is the beasts always are facing the earth and can never look to the stars and never appreciate them, and therefore never incline towards God. Where the angels are of the stars, of the heavens, and have to look down, but they do. That's what they do. They look down on beasts. They look down. They don't appreciate that. So the angels know the mind of God and therefore cannot appreciate a body. And the angels don't have a body. And so we are that somewhere in between, that we can look to the stars, that we have a heavenly mind, that we can look and understand God, and we also have that beastly part of us that we still walk the earth. And by the way, just so you understand, that's what that biblical story is about also. This story, this question of where do we come from and how is this is why the biblical story says God sends Jesus, is because he can walk that middle ground, that he can finally come out of the heavens and be with his creation, man, and see what their problems are. Anyway, that's kind of it's in that piece, and I want you to think about that too. And neither mortal or immortal, because being mortal, being of a body, restricts you. It means you can't do certain things. You'll never know the mind of God until you can shuffle off this body so you can be with God. And so you have to get rid of the mortality. But there is that immortal part of us, and this goes back to that other question I said with you too, that immortal part of us, that part that goes on. Because the Renaissance people were very uncomfortable with the fact that, and religious people in general are uncomfortable with the fact that the body could be the end of it all. They want there to be some kind of piece to us that continues on, so that we can find out, and this is kind of the philosophical understanding of the world, so you can find out how it actually works, so you can get to God and find out, oh, that's what we were supposed to do in life, oh, that's how it all works, so that the philosophical soul can go find out all the questions that it could not answer while it had a body and had to be having food and having drink and having sleep and having sex. And so that's kind of the answer to that. Heavenly, not all the way, because God's got angels for that. Not earthly, beastly, because he's got beasts for that. We're that middle ground. And therefore we have mortality for a while, then we have immortality forever. All right, but good question. All these are good questions. Next one. Self-Portrait of Universal Man by Batista, 46, that the author was referring to when he was going to throw out the 3 books in the fire. Did the individuals like and support his work? Yeah, so again, Alberti's talking about himself. He's writing in that third person, trying to get some remove about himself, but it's obviously not very effective, especially by the things that he tells us about himself, because there's clearly somebody who knows somebody intimately, and the only way you can know somebody that intimately is to be that somebody. Yes, and he was going to throw his books in the fire because, remember, he wrote those 3 books on the family. We saw some of that earlier in the other about Alberti stuff from about a couple weeks ago. He was going to throw his books in the fire because his family did not properly appreciate them. But you'll notice what he says right after that is, but people begged me not to. Princes begged me not to throw my books into the fire, and so I didn't. And so they're saved for posterity. But only because princes wanted them, because my family did not appreciate them. And so he's that sensitive soul. He feels things. He feels things deeply, and so he doesn't feel just if you make some slight on him or make some comment about him, he doesn't feel a little bit. He feels it huge, and it hurts him. All right, let's get to the last one. Buonarroti in the Condivi piece on 506. You have 2 questions here. I'm going to split them up. Why did Michelangelo refuse to take up the job in building the platform, and why did Michelangelo refuse to take or accept payment? So first off, on the building platform, again, this kind of goes back to that Alberti idea. He's an artist. He believes that he is for sculpting and painting. That's it. He has a mind where he understands architecture and what needs to happen architecturally. He understands scientifically why the scaffolding that the other Bramante made was not going to work. And that's why he's asking him, is that the best you can do? You have to break holes in the ceiling, the very place you're trying to get to make your scaffolding. And so he didn't want to be an architect. And by taking on the job of building the platform, he recognized that's the path he was on. He didn't want that. And that's why he didn't want to do it. Michelangelo refused to take or accept a payment. He didn't take payment because it was an extra payment. He was being paid for the job, and what this was kind of a reward for doing it and trying to show appreciation. And he was like, no, we have a contract and you're paying me on the contract. For me to take more would be for me to kind of elevate myself and say, yeah, I'm kind of deserving of it. It is good what I'm doing. And he wasn't comfortable with that. So that's why he refused to take the extra payment. All right. I know that was long, but I tried to answer a lot of good questions there because I think they're really important to what you need to do for this week, this week's writing. As I said in my announcement, the best one of the pieces of this week of the 5 pieces is that Mirandola piece. The next 2 are the autobiographies, the Alberti and the Cardano piece at the end. The 2 middle ones, the Moore piece and the Bonardi piece, are good, but they're simply not as resoundingly good as the other ones. So anyway, read accordingly. Have a good spring break. We'll see if I can get another video up here. All right, bye.